So hi everyone, thanks for joining this month's Ocrolus Product Pulse. Today we're going to deep dive into income calculations in Ocrolus, and we're also going to show the new integration with Fannie Mae's income calculator. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to them at the end. My name is Vicky from our marketing team, and I'm joined today by Rebecca Seward, our Director of Product. So I will pass it over to you, Becca, so we can get started.
Yeah, sounds great. So today what we're going to demonstrate for everybody. So today what we're our income calculation and our latest integration with the Fannie Mae income calculator. Ocrolus extracts data off of pay stubs, WVOEs, tax forms, and other passive income documents to quickly and automatically generate income calculations for borrowers. We support income calculations for wage earners, for self-employed borrowers, rental owners, as well as a handful of passive income types. Our brand promise is to always deliver 99+% accuracy data extraction for our customers, and we leverage that accurate data to come up with calculations for our customers. But you'll see here in our demonstration today that the design of the product, the user interface, is to enable our underwriters, our loan officers, our processors to ultimately own the decision of which income calculation they use for qualifying purposes. Everything you'll see today has been designed to enable users to trust but verify our system because we don't want our calculations to be within a black box. We want to enable customers to be able to have that explainability, that transparency that they need to ultimately trust the system and use that calculation for its purposes. So what you see right now is something called the Ocrolus dashboard. Now, the Ocrolus dashboard is available to customers through a browser-based platform, so you can access it through Chrome, Safari, etc. But it is also embedded into the Encompass loan origination software through additional services. So Encompass customers can access this through the Services tab, and an iframed window will appear with this screen that you're seeing here that has access to all of the data. Once you're done calculating income, you can then import that income value into the system of record. For those that don't use Encompass, you can still access this information that you're seeing on screen through a PDF download or via API. So for customers who might have a development team on staff who are able to leverage this data and import it into their own systems of record, whether that's a point of sale or a loan origination system, you have that flexibility to do that as well. So what you're seeing here on screen is an income summary table. Now, income summary is to display all of the relevant income calculations that were generated for this loan application. So if you have multiple borrowers, whether that's two or even upwards of 12 that is supported in the loan origination system, you would see all of the relevant borrowers listed out here and all of their various income streams. Now, this is useful for anybody who is a loan officer or a broker who might be trying to scenario desk or scenario build, depending on whether or not they want to include one or both borrowers. So, for example, if I were to exclude Martha from the equation, I would see what the income value would be with just George's application. If I were to add Martha back, I can see the income updated, and I can also see the distribution of the income between these two borrowers. So this is just in case you need to see whether or not George could qualify by himself or Martha could qualify by him or herself. You can also toggle between the loan program. Now, for Encompass customers, we are actually able to access the loan program details directly from the system of record and generate income calculations based on the guidelines for that loan application. So for example, for FHA or government loan programs, we might be a little bit more conservative. We might generate different yearly averages. And in the case of Fannie and Freddie, we also would adjust according to those guidelines. These guidelines are kept up to date consistently. We have underwriters on staff who are constantly reviewing guideline updates to make sure that we remain compliant to industry standards and regulations. And so anytime that a regulation changes, we would adjust accordingly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and dive into George's wage earner income and see the distribution there. Now, we have income distributed across salary, bonus, hourly, overtime, commission, etc. And we apply different rules based on the history of receipt. So for example, for variable income types such as bonus, overtime, or commission, We would generate an income value, but not select a default in the case where we don't have enough history of receipt to ensure its continuance. In this case, we actually had a verification of employment document that showed the consistency of the variable income type in the bonus, and we were able to select and recommend an income value based on that history. We also were able to do this at an annualized amount, but we offer the flexibility for customers to use a year-to-date average as well. Now, everything in this income screen is generated in order to provide flexibility to our lenders to make any manual adjustments you need to, if for whatever reason you need to get a little bit more conservative, a little bit more aggressive, or you have access to information that wasn't on the documents that we processed. In addition to that, any value that is implemented into this screen can be verified quickly with a hover and a click. So if I click on the 100,000 annual amount, I can see the document preview, so the source document from which that data value was extracted. And within the document itself, I can see the value highlighted on screen. Again, this provides that transparency and that traceability to any loan team member who is accessing this screen to be able to trust but verify the system. We don't need to tell you that we do need 99.9% plus accurate data extraction. We can demonstrate that through the product itself. So everything in here is designed so that you can quickly verify the income values and see the source documents on screen, so you don't have to swivel chair effect between the dashboard experience and your loan origination system, whether that's the e-folder or any other document repository where your borrower's documents are stored. At the top, you'll see that we provide any insights into issues or insights or red flags that we want to bring to your attention to help with your review. So in this instance, we did calculate the bonus income, but the income is declining year over year by 15% or more. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to use that bonus income, but it's a good highlight for an underwriter who might need to understand that information to know whether or not they should qualify the borrower with that income value. If I move over to self-employed, you'll see our integration with the Fannie Mae income calculator. So for those on the call who might be familiar, Fannie Mae offers an online income calculator that guides processors and underwriters through all of the different fields that are extracted from tax forms in order to calculate an income value. Now, that's just a guided tour where an underwriter, a processor, whomever would have to manually key in every single field from the tax forms into that screen, and then you get to an income value. With Ocrolus, we automatically extract all of those data values from the tax forms and we populate it into the income calculator. We send Fannie all of those data fields, and Fannie returns back an income value that is rep and warranted. So this provides value to our customers because you have that assurance and that protection of the income value being accurate. Now, there are certain input fields that are required for our underwriting teams to input, and this is just because there are certain fields that cannot be deduced from the actual documents themselves. These are fields that Fannie Mae requires the processor or the underwriter to provide that just requires a level of human discernment. It's not to say that there is anything that we did not want to populate, but it's rather just a requirement that Fannie has in order to calculate the income values. And within this input screen, you would see those necessary field values. Those include the employment start date. Now, a document might provide the date that the business was established, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that was the same date in which the business owner started at that company. So you would need to input the employment start date. You have the option to input the case file ID number from DU, and that would associate the Fannie Mae calculation to the desktop underwriter findings in the background. So when you go to sell this to Fannie, you would have that rep and warranty coverage on the back end automatically when they receive your loan. We have information about extraordinary one-time expenses. Again, information that doesn't come from any one specific location on the tax returns, and then any fields that are necessary for the specific business structure for this self-employed borrower. So we support all four business types, self-employed business types with Fannie Mae, sole proprietorship, S Corp, partnerships, etc. And you would see here in the screen all of the field values that were extracted. Now, you don't necessarily need to leverage the Fannie Mae income calculator. For example, if you were to review the issues and find certain risk or eligibility information, verifications, observations that made you want to choose or deviate from the income calculation Fannie provided, you can override that and go to a manual adjustment internally. So let's say, for example, there was a non-recurring income or expense that you wanted to add back, you can adjust any of these field values, and it works similarly to an Excel spreadsheet. So if I were to add a value here of $1,000, it would adjust the calculation automatically on screen. And those adjustments are, again, flexible for anybody who's leveraging this platform, and you have the ability to verify all of the data fields here as well. Once again, you can choose to go to a different loan program. We will read what is from Encompass, but if you need to adjust on site and you need to see what the calculation would be if you chose a different program, you have that availability. Moving over to rental, which we plan to expand the Fannie Mae income integration for over the next 2 months, you can see here the income broken down per rental property. So if, for example, a borrower has 30 to 40 rental properties, you would see each one broken up with an accordion style view to see the overview and all of the details for that specific property. You have the address, the occupancy type. You can choose to calculate via the 1040 Schedule E or the lease agreement form as well. Again, all of these field values can automatically be reviewed and sourced and verified. Finally, we go over to the other income category. Now, other income would include Social Security income, unemployment income, pension, etc. The list is expanding as we build out our roadmap, but ultimately, we're going to be reading those award letters, those other documents that might not necessarily fit neatly into wage earner, self-employed, and rental, and you have the ability to calculate here. We are working on doing things like gross ups and automatic application of different values here that aren't currently supported. So this is probably the one area in which the Ocrolus roadmap is expanding over the next, call it 3 to 6 months. So once I'm done calculating all of these income values, particularly if I calculated something with Fannie, I have the ability to download the income data via a zip file. Now, the zip file is going to include a PDF export of all of the income on this loan, and it's also going to include the Fannie Mae income summary with all of the observations that were provided so that you can print that out and push it to your system of record. This automatically gets pushed to the e-folder today, and clients can actually choose where that document is routed into their e-folder so that they have the ability to share that with their investor later on in the secondary market. Two other things that I want to bring to this team's attention is the ability to add loan level comments. So, for example, if you have multiple team members, whether that's a processor, an underwriter, a loan officer, who are all reviewing income on the loan file in tandem, you can make certain comments on this loan so that a person who's reviewing it later has visibility into decisions that were made earlier on in the loan life cycle. So, in this case, I can see that my coworker, David, mentioned that it was okay to add back depreciation in the income calculation. So now I have that context similar to how Encompass has the conversation log, so I can reference that later on. In addition to that, if at any point an income value is adjusted, maybe someone deviated from our calculation, maybe someone made a manual adjustment on screen, we also have that traceability in an audit activity log. So if at any point you need to go back to see why income was changed or income deviated from what Fannie Mae suggested, I can see any adjustments that were made at any time by any loan team member. And I have that traceability to see who made that change, at what time, and what specific field was altered. Considering we have a little bit of time left, I will show a few more features. In Wage Earner, we have a function where clients can merge entities. Now, merging is for any situation where Ocrolus was unable to deduce that two entities were in fact the same. Now, we know that there is oftentimes a DBA of businesses where you have one name on a pay stub and one name on a verification of employment, or you have one name on a tax return and that LLC changed names in the next fiscal year. You have the ability to merge employers if and when the rare case Ocrolus was unable to see that those two entities were in fact the same. So if I had two different employers named out here, I could merge those and recalculate the income based on all of the available sources for that entity. Similarly, very rare case, but if Ocrolus was unable to marry two individuals who maybe had a name change through a marriage or divorce, you have the ability to merge those names here. And in this case, I would just select the two names that I wanted to merge and anchor it to the name that I wanted to keep. And that would readjust the calculation for you accordingly. It would also show you all of the available sources for that specific entity. I have 3 to 4 sources here on this calculation for Martha for this logistics company. And if I want to maybe update my pay stub, if I have a newer document on file that I would like to adjust to, I have this drop down ability and can select through these checkboxes which sources I want to use in my calculation. Again, in this case with Martha, we did not select a year to date value for the overtime income because we didn't have any history of receipt to give us that confidence that this income value was likely to continue. Now, in the case where you might receive something down funnel, perhaps you receive a newer pay stub, maybe you receive a verification of employment from a previous year. If you upload that into the Ocrolus system, Ocrolus will automatically recalculate the income value and provide the updated income calculations that customers can reference. And in the case of clients who might be using us via API, or perhaps you're accessing us through Encompass, we would notify you through either a webhook or an email notification so that you knew once income was ready to be re-reviewed. On average, it takes us anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes to process the entire loan application. So if you were to upload an origination packet with income documents, whether those were tax forms, pay stubs, etc., we would classify all of those documents. We would give them a standardized name. We would extract all the values, and you would have these income documents ready to review, or these income values rather, ready to review within that 30 to 45-minute time frame. And that is the income calculator through Ocrolus. I wanted to offer a little bit of time for anybody who might have had questions. So, Vicky, I'll turn it over to you to see what's in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Becca. This was awesome going over all of this. So we have a few questions in the chat so far. Someone is asking if we can provide access to this portal to our brokers only through the website.
Through the website, yes. So again, this particular view that you're looking at can be accessed either through Encompass or through the dashboard experience on a browser. So if you wanted to expose it to specific sets of users, you could have them all create unique logins so that they could access this screen, and you can manage what loan applications they have to review as well. So you could create a unique profile for every single broker, and they could access this in a book list overview style, similar to a pipeline view, and they can access this independently of their system of record.
Great. Thanks, Becca. And then we have another question asking, and related to the comments that you were showing before, can you just talk about where people can find the comments if they missed that?
Yeah, of course. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, you can see this little comment here, and I can see book comments. So you would see any reference to conversations happening previously in the loan application. You also have the ability to print these book comments onto the PDF that you would issue into the system of record. So if you wanted to include comments or if you wanted to include source documents in the PDF, we actually give control to our users about what is printed out and shared through that export.
Great. Thanks. And then, so someone's asking a little bit more information on the Fannie Mae integration. So I think you actually answered this, but is the integration just available for self-employed, or are there other income types that we can use?
Today, it is available for all four business structures for self-employed borrowers. We are expanding into rental in the next, call it 30 to 60 days. We're actually actively working on development there. And then, of course, as Fannie continues to expand their offerings to technical service providers like Ocrolus, we will continue to integrate with whatever they have available. We have heard from our Fannie reps that they plan to expand into wage earner, hopefully by early start of next year. And so as they make those different calculations available to us as a approved technical service provider, we will expand our offering for our customers.
Great. And then, so if we want to use the integration, how can we start using it?
For customers who already have a relationship with Fannie, all they have to do is reach out to their account manager. Fannie will issue a service agreement to the customer. And then if you were to sign it today, that means that Fannie would approve you by the following Monday, and Ocrolus would be able to enable it that following Friday. So if you were to do it today, it would be turned on for you next Friday.
Great. Thanks. And then it looks like we have a follow-up question to the initial one on the portal for brokers.
Hmm.
So, if the user creates a book manually, is there a way to then link it to a loan file in Encompass somehow?
Not today, although we are trying to figure out how to make a connection between loans that are created in the dashboard to loans that are later created in Encompass. We have some ideas about how we would support that. We're just trying to execute that within our roadmap.
All right, thank you. And then, if we had a lease agreement, would Ocrolus recognize it as an investment property and use it to calculate rental income?
It is an option for lease agreements to be included in the calculator today. Yes.
Great. And we got a lot of questions, so I got another one for you here. For an hourly wage earner, how are variable hourly rates handled? For example, a nurse with shift differential.
Great question. So today in the income values, you can see here I have the option to do hourly versus salary income, but there's also a table for shift differential. This was something that we actually expanded into recently for those nurses, agricultural workers, anyone who might have shift differential. We would recognize the base hourly income value included in that table here, and then the shift differential and the associated hours would be brought out here into this shift differential table as well.
Great. Okay, looks like we have all of them answered. I'll leave another minute in case anyone has any additional questions.
Yeah. On the rep and warranty piece, I'll just add one final note. I mentioned, of course, that our Fannie Mae income calculation allows us to offer rep and warranty through the Fannie Mae provider. However, if clients were to not have that Fannie Mae integration, we also have rep and warranty coverage through a third-party insurer, Lloyd's of London. So that was one thing I failed to mention.
Great ad. So looks like we've answered all of the questions. So I just want to thank you so much, Becca, for walking us through income calcs and Ocrolus. And then thank you everyone for joining us. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any additional questions, and we will see you at our next product pulse.